Hello, friends. This is Mrs. Demlow with your Friday, May 15th lesson. I hope you're doing well. And our first thing we're going to talk about today is what's the big idea about water? It was in your packet from last week on your STEAM art paper. It looks just like this. So if you want to get that out and follow along, I'm going to share the screen with you and read that. And we're going to talk about what is the big idea about water. And your I can statements for today are I can identify what animals need to live, and I can use informational text evidence to answer questions and to find information. Here we go. Here's our packet for this week. And it says literacy, scientific literacy. What's the big idea about water? All living things need water. All living things from tiny algae to giant blue whales need water to survive. Without water, life as we know it would not exist. And life exists wherever there is water. All organisms or living things like animals and plants use water, salty or fresh, hot or cold, plenty of water, or almost no water at all. They are adapted to all kinds of habitats or places that they live, from sizzling deserts that are very hot to the freezing pitch dark ocean floor. The first living things appeared in the ocean nearly 4 billion years ago. Some, like our ancestors or people that lived before us, adapted to life on land. Humans have figured out how to survive in swamps, deserts, and all kinds of habitats in between. The ocean is still home to more kinds of life than anywhere else on the planet. So that water helps them to live. All all ecosystems need water. How much water is there on an island or a mountaintop? The answer determines what lives there and how many of them. An ecosystem is a community of living things or species. Some ecosystems are very wet and others very dry. Some with fresh water and others with salty water. Some ecosystems, like coral reefs, support lots of species, and others, like the dry Antarctic valleys, support very few because they don't have a lot of that and it's very cold. Down below, you'll see your vocabulary word bank telling you what each one of these things that we talked about in the passage above mean. And the first one we can look at is algae, and is a living thing like a plant. It lives mainly in water and makes food. It's from the sun, and algae can be found in all types of water. And there's the blue whales that we talk about, and here's an organism. It's a living thing, like we talked about. Plants, animals, and even germs are organisms. And a habitat, which we're going to talk more about, is the natural environment of an animal or plant. It is where animals live that aren't pets, because pets live in houses, but animals have other habitats that are wild animals. A billion is a really big number. It's bigger than 100. It's bigger than a million. A billion is 1 billion. Look at it. That's how long that number is. And ancestors are people from your family that lived a long, long time ago. Ecosystems are groups of living things, all living things together in the environment. And a species is a group of living things that are really similar. All house cats are from the same species, and all human beings are the same species as well. And the Antarctic is a faraway place at the South Pole, down there at the bottom of the earth. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to be talking about those things that help animals to live. What are some of the things that you need to live? I'm going to give you a second to think about that. What are some of the things that we need to live? What do you think they might be? I think you're right. I think that food, we need food to live, don't we? We need water, and we need shelter. We need something over our heads to stay out of the elements of our habitat where we live. We can't be out there all the time. So those are some things that we do need. And on your packet, you'll see that there were some pictures of some items that you were to sort, cut them out, put them under each one. The first one up here says food. The second one says water. And the third one says shelter. I have some things here that I'm going to ask you if you can tell me whether they go in the section under food, water, or some things about shelter, if I name some things that are shelter. If I have a banana, Would that go under food, water, or shelter? Yes, it goes under food. A banana is a food. What if I have this? Would that go under food, water, or shelter? You're right. It is water, so it goes under water. You're right. What about this? Where would this go? An orange. Food, water, or shelter? Yes, it's under food. And what about, hmm, this ice cube? When you see it, it's very slippery. There it is. Would that go under food, water, or shelter? Hmm, what is an ice cube? An ice cube is frozen. You're right, it's frozen water. And so it's going to go under the water section. What kind of things would go under shelter? Let's look down below and see if we can pick out the pictures that show shelter. I see one, a teepee. That would be a place where you could take shelter and sleep in. The Native Americans did many years ago. Some of them slept in teepees. Not all of them, though. Ah, and a castle. That would be shelter. Where is something place that you have that is your shelter? You're right. It could be an apartment. It could be a house. Exactly. You are so right. Great job. Good job sorting. And then at the bottom, I want you to tell me, after you've sorted them, what do you think the essential resources you need to survive? What are the things that we have to have to survive? Do we have to have chips? No. We have to have food, but we don't have to have chips to survive. We just have to have healthy food that will help keep us safe and healthy and not getting sick and keeping our muscles and bones strong. Do we have to have soda, Coke? No, we don't have to have that. But do we have to have water? Is it essential? Necessary? We have to have it? Yes, water is one of those essential. So at the bottom down here, I want you to write what one of those things are things that we have to have. So if we have to have water, ice or water, you're going to write that down there, that water, ice cubes are one of the things that are essential. If we have to have shelter, maybe you would say teepee as an essential thing because we have to have that to survive and live. Great work. You've done such a great job so far. Let's keep going. I have a special video for you. I'm going to unshare our screen, and I have a special video for you today, and it's all about habitats of animals. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been spending a lot of time outside, and I've been seeing all kinds of things in the habitats around my apartment. And there's lots of trees and forest areas, kind of like wooded areas. And they're like a forest where a lot of animals live. Yesterday when I was out, I saw some squirrels living, and they used certain things for their shelter. What do you think a squirrel would use for shelter outside? You're right, they live in trees. And I could see the squirrels scurrying up the trees and getting into their nest that they've built in the trees. And they also can find food there because they can eat some of the nuts and other berries that they can find around the trees and the flowers and the bushes that are there in the forest. So I'm going to bring up the next video and share the screen, and we're going to learn more about habitats from this Brain Pop video. You remember Brain Pop, I'm sure. Here we go.
What are we doing today, Moby? Cool. What are forests? A forest is a type of habitat that has many trees. A lot of other living things grow in forests too, like shrubs and bushes, ferns, flowers, fruit, and fungi. Different kinds of animals live in forests too. There's enough food, water, and shelter here for many animals to survive. There are different types of forests. What are deciduous forests like? Deciduous forests are found in places where the weather changes from season to season. The plants adapt to changes in the weather. During the warm and sunny summer, plants can grow thick and green. In the fall, the weather cools down and most plants grow more slowly. The leaves of many plants change colors and eventually fall off. As winter arrives, the weather gets colder and colder. Many plants stop growing in the winter to save energy, and some die. When the weather gets warmer in the spring, plants grow back. Some plants grow flowers and give off seeds so new plants can grow. Forest animals adapt to the changing seasons in different ways. Brown bears eat a lot of different foods. They change their diets depending on what's around during different seasons. When food is harder to find in the winter, bears tend to stay in their shelters and save energy. Beavers live in and around rivers, and they mostly eat tree bark. They also build their lodges out of trees. During the warmer seasons, beavers collect food in their lodges. They have food all winter long. Many birds, such as ruby-throated hummingbirds, migrate to warmer places during the winter. What are coniferous forests like? Coniferous forests are found in areas where the weather changes from season to season. But they're also found in areas that stay cold for most of the year. Coniferous trees look pretty different from deciduous trees. The leaves of coniferous trees look like long, thin needles. They help the trees save water and protect them from the cold. Coniferous trees also grow cones. Its seeds are protected inside the cones. Unlike deciduous trees, coniferous trees don't lose their needles in winter, and trees stay green all year round. That's why they're called evergreens. Pine trees are a type of conifer. Christmas trees are conifers too. How are forests changing? Trees are natural resources. A lot of things we use every day come from trees. But people have been clearing forests for land and wood. When that happens, living things lose their habitats. It's important to protect habitats and use natural resources wisely. You can reduce, reuse, and recycle, and encourage others to do so too. You can also choose items that are made out of recycled materials. You can even write to government leaders and tell them to help protect our forests. Moby, I think it's time we go back to class now. Uh-oh, if the bear cub is here, then where's its mother?
Okay, friends. You see that this forest has lots of animals that live in it and use the things around it in its habitat or the place that they live for the things that they need, like food, shelter, and if they are cutting them down, then they are not going to have those things that they need to live. The next page in your packet, I'm going to share the screen again, and I'm going to show you the next page in your packet. It is the page, oops. It is the page that says, if we can get it to move down, This shows the picture of the forest. And we are going to analyze and talk to our friends and our parents and talk about how do these things make up our habitat. And what of other types of things that are in your habitat that you consider important right now? So I looked around my area, around my house, in the forest or the wooded area by me, and I looked very closely to see the living things in that forest habitat. You can go out inside in your yard and see what types of habitats do you see? What types of living things are using those habitats? And how do you think they are meeting their needs for food, water, and shelter? Those three things we said they had to have. And then you can color your habitat and the types of organisms like the plants, the animals, and the germs. Remember, we learned from our first reading that organisms are things that are alive, things that are living, and that might live there. And habitats are places that they live. All right, stop sharing my screen. We're going to read a quick story here called A Log's Life, and it's going to tell us about all the things that each of these animals that live here in this forest habitat and by this log do for their food, water, and shelter to help them survive. And it's called A Log's Life. And it's by Wendy Pfeiffer and illustrated by Robin Brickman. Deep in a forest, a great oak tree stands. I bet this oak tree is shelter to a lot of animals. A family of squirrels lives in a hole in its trunk. A porcupine chews on its branches. A colony of carpenter ants nests under the outer bark. A woodpecker pecks at the rough bark, searching for insects. He spears one, devours it, and hunts for more. What kind of things are you hearing that are things that these animals need? What was the shelter that they all were using? Take a second to think about that. Yes, I think so too. Our text tells us that they're using the tree as their shelter. The birds were using it, the squirrels were using it as their shelter, and the carpenter ants. And they were using something else that they need to live too. What else were they finding from the tree that they needed to live? Yes, they were finding food there, weren't they? It says a woodpecker pecks at the rough bark, searching for insects. So it found some insects for it to eat. That was its food. Wood-boring beetles burrow under the bark, chewing wood and leaving tunnels. Water and air seep into the tunnels. Toadstools and other fungi, such as mildew, molds, and mushrooms, sprout in these damp places. Slugs and snails crawl up the tree trunk into the tunnels and eat the fungi. So they're finding food there too, aren't they? Food, shelter, and water. One stormy day, a strong wind whips through the forest. The old oak tree bends with every gust. Rain pelts its branches. Wind tosses its leaves through the air. Lightning flashes and sizzles down its trunk. A thunderous crack startles the porcupine sleeping nearby. The tall oak begins to topple. What does topple mean? Topple. It's falling over. You're right. Squirrels feel the trembling, scramble out of their hole. One strong gust of blustery wind tears the great oak's roots from the ground. The tree crashes down, shaking the forest floor. Branches break, limbs splinter, leaves scatter. Oh no. What do you think this is going to take away from the animals? Is it going to be their food, their water, or their shelter? Which one of those things did they use the tree for? I'm remembering that it said in the story that they're using the tree for their shelter and their food. They are. Now it's a giant log. See, now it's laying on the ground. It's a giant log. Soon the storm stops and the sun comes out. An umbrella of leaves and tangled branches block the sunshine from the forest floor. The porcupine comes out of its den. Squirrels scamper to see the old hole that was once their home. Oh no. Lost their home. I wonder if they'll make a new home here in the forest. Let's read and find out. Under the log, ants rush about, carrying white bundles of babies. A spider crawls through cracks and crevices, searching for a dry spot to place her egg sac. Millipedes settle between the log and the wet ground. For now, they are safe from the spider. Termites soon discover the fallen log and move in, and termites are bugs that like to eat wood. They not only eat the rotting wood, they lay their eggs there too. All kinds of bugs and spiders are moving into the log. What are they making the log into? Something that is essential, that they absolutely have to have. What is it? Yes, their shelter. They're making it their shelter. Are they doing anything else there? Yes, they're making it so they can have food there as well. They eat that rotting wood. Those termites do. Those are the essential things they need. For 3 or 4 years, through hot, cold, wet, and dry seasons, ants, beetles, fungi, slugs, snails, spiders, millipedes, and termites live in the log. One winter, the porcupine's hollow log collapses. He moves into the oak log too. So he had his own, but now he moved into a different one. In the spring, click beetles snap and click their bodies and flip high in the air before settling in the log. Salamanders, frightened by the noise and sudden movements, dart under the log for safety and stay. In the summer, pillbugs and slugs crawl inside the cool, moist log to keep from drying out. Pillbugs eat dead leaves. Salamanders eat the pillbugs. Slugs slip out at night and eat almost anything. The old log provides both food and shelter for the millipedes. They eat decaying plants and trees, but spiders eat the millipedes. Again, the text is telling us that they are getting their essential needs met through this log, shelter and their food. Several more years of hot, cold, and wet and dry seasons pass. Time, weather, and the chewing, pecking, boring, and tunneling of many animals and insects make the inside of the log spongy. It's kind of got watery and makes it spongy and can move. The outer bark becomes soft and damp, and gradually it falls to the ground. Wood-boring insects have no wood to bore. They find another log. The woodpecker hunts for another tree to pet. Spiders spin their webs in drier spots, and the porcupine moves to a more solid log, finding other logs to make their shelter. Slowly, a lush green blanket of moss carpets the rotting log. Its thick roots break down the wood. Over the next few years, the log crumbles. What is left looks like dirt. It feels like dirt. It smells like dirt. It is dirt. So it just disintegrates down into dirt. Earthworms move in. They turn the soil over just as a shovel does. They burrow down and break up the soil just as a rake does. In about 10 years, the rotting log has become a mound of rich black earth. So it just turned into the soil after all those worms had turned it over and moved it around and raked it up. One autumn day, an acorn falls from a nearby oak tree. A squirrel buries it in the rich soil. A seedling oak sprouts and grows until, we've talked about this, about how seeds grow through germination. One day, deep in the forest, another great oak tree stands. Squirrels move in. So do carpenter ants, beetles, and woodpeckers. Excuse me. The ants build nests. The beetles burrow. The woodpecker pets. For years, life goes on in the oak tree. Then one night, the wind whistles through the trees. The old oak tree bends and shakes. It crashes to the forest floor and becomes another giant log. All right, boys and girls, what did we learn that animals have to have through our informational text that we read in our packet? In our, excuse me, Got to get a drink because people need water too. And through our book, what are the things that we know that are essential to animals' survival? Yes, they need food. What else do they need? Water, shelter. You are right. And many animals find that in the habitat of the forest, where there's trees and other kind of nuts and berries and logs for them to eat on and to take shelter in. You did a great job today. I hope to see you next week when we have our goodbye video for the end of the school year. Take care and don't forget, make sure you're doing your packet and reading your books. Goodbye.